Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first workshop of the conference with the theme of accelerating digital transformation and innovation in a remote only environment. And for the workshop, we have Mr. Gaurav Jagavkar, who is Principal Solutions Architect and Amazon Internet Services. So, without any further ado, let's get this workshop started. Over to you, Gaurav.
Thank you, Shivani. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, yes.
Lovely. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a good time at home. What we are going to discuss is how's this working from home affecting the way we perform business in today's world, right? But let's get started by my own introduction. Thanks, Shivani, for the kind words. I work at AWS as a principal solutions architect, and I work very closely with the startups in India. And I also work with a lot of fintech companies. So, uh, the next slides that we are going to discuss is more about what we've learned as AWS as an organization, the trends that we are seeing in India, and what our customers on AWS are doing and where they are going in this very strange times, right? So let's get started. First is businesses don't stop. The scenario outside is difficult. I stay in Mumbai. You can't travel outside. There are restrictions, but businesses can't stop. In fact, businesses want to treat this as an opportunity to maximize the way digital India is going forward. That's the mandate from the Indian government. That's the mandate for the fintech and the startups that they have. They are digital first, right? And the big question that we are trying to solve today is how do we enable the employees to work from home? It's the COVID-19 pandemic is causing multiple challenges to organizations around the world. Businesses need to maintain continuity as they ask their employees to work from home, right? And this sudden and unforeseen surge of remote workers, this is not something that we had anticipated or any business had prepared for. Um, a lot of our customers didn't even have laptops for all the employees. But how do you enable the workers, the employees to work remotely in such an environment? You can't have the work stop. And that's what we're going to discuss today as to what AWS brings to the table and what are the options available to keep our business rolling, right? Um, the work in any ways was changing for a longer period of time. The globalization of the economy has driven the need for you to collaborate with people in different time zones, different geographies, and there are interactions over phone, over video, over voice channels, and the work keeps happening. If at all, if anything is changed, and I'm speaking for myself and everybody that I've spoken with, is the number of hours that we are putting in terms of work. Our day starts at 8:39 and just goes on, right? Because there is no 6 o'clock go home for us. So the questions and the discussions that I generally get into involves a lot of people asking me, how do I enable my workers, my employees, my colleagues to work effectively from home? How do you enable my customers to get things done without leaving the confines of my of their own houses, right? Um, the allied businesses, businesses like the contact centers, if you have any, how do they operate? They are a regulated industry. Everything happens in an audited form. Everything is recorded. How is the supervision happening? How is the audio quality maintained? How is the entire setup secure when working from home? And security is extremely vital, right? When we are talking about this, people are in their own place. How do you enable the data that is proprietary? You're the custodians of the end user's data. How does that remain secure even when my employees, my customers are working from remote locations? Are there ways and means to do that? Let's dive into fintech specifically, and what does AWS have to do with them in any case, right? AWS has been working with fintech organizations for a long time now, and there are specific reasons why AWS comes into play. AWS provides tools like AWS Artifact, and AWS Artifact gives you all the compliances at an infrastructure level. Here, you don't have to take care of when you're on the cloud like AWS. You don't have to take care of the physical security of your infrastructure, and the audits which happen from third-party regulated auditors are available to you at the click of the button. So that reduces the amount of undifferentiated heavy lifting that fintech startups are doing today, right? So you focus on business and business alone, because now technology is democratized to everybody. It is not only the privilege of enterprises alone in today's world, right? um, so you can keep your data encrypted at rest without even knowing or learning the security and encryption protocols. It's just a click of the button for you. And you can use the latest and greatest of technologies. You can use containers, you can use caches, you can use AIML just as APIs, and that's what is enabling businesses. The other part is also cost, right? If you've got a finite set of money, you'd rather invest that in terms of features to your fintech, in terms of what you give to your end customers as capabilities, right? And which is why it is extremely important to reduce your infrastructure spend and to have it right sized. You're not going to say no to business. When there's a huge spike in business, you want the infrastructure to scale out. But when there are downtimes, when the market's closed, you want that infrastructure to be a bare minimum to support the number of users. That's where AWS has a huge role to play. And no wonder a lot of global financial companies are fintechs are on AWS. And this does not just include startups which were formed in a few years back, right? Even companies like, let's take the example of Travelex. I think Travelex was formed in 1976, and they're doing newer innovations. Their new product called as Travelex Wire is for digital payments across nations, is completely built on AWS. Now, what that gives them is the agility and the scale for their business operation. And it's not just these ones, there's so many more. In fact, 100% of the 2019 Forbes FinTech startups were on AWS. you know Large customers weren't that threatened by these startups previously. Now we've got customers like Robinhood. Now Robinhood's got about 4 million customers, and they do commission free trading. And now they become the trendsetters in the industry, where organizations like JP Morgan follow the suite. And that's what fintechs are about, right? The disruption that you bring into play. And disruption in these times is even more vital. Let me bring the whole story much closer to home. Various companies in India, and I'm sure you know most of these brands, these are extremely popular brands. These are our referenceable customers on AWS. So companies like Zerodha, whose use case we'll be discussing later, Policy Bazaar using Poly and natural speech for having communication with customers, or fintech and payment organizations like Tech Process. If you've made any credit card payment, you've definitely come across those guys. Are based on AWS. Let's take the case of the largest due diligence company based out of India, right? So Zerodha is a digital due diligence company. It takes it does financial checks against regulatory requirements for financial services company, for others, right, for the counterparties. uh, and it does that with about 700 sources of information available with the government as well as the public sector, right? And that's no mean feat. But how do you do that in real time? How do you actually bring down the cost? Companies like Zerodha are redefining the way technology is implemented. Here, they're using technologies which are completely serverless, so they don't have a huge infrastructure footprint when nothing's happening. But when required, they can go to from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds. And that's the value that we are bringing into fintechs today. Also, these times are extremely important in various aspects. There's a definite need to make sure that the data is secure, right? You've seen apps like Arogya Setu, and the amount of discussion where personal data that is maintained on application remains secure and not accessible. So security is a day zero job when we are talking about AWS. Security at AWS starts with our core infrastructure. The infrastructure is custom built for the cloud and designed to meet the most stringent security requirements in the world. Our infrastructure is actually physically monitored 24 by 7 to help ensure the entire confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your data. In fact, we've got SLAs for that, for the services that you use. You can rely on AWS's global infrastructure. You can have multi-region deployments, knowing that you are always in control where the data resides. It's your decision at the end of the day, right? And when the data is in the cloud, it doesn't matter whether you're in the office or whether you're at home, right? The second part is the scalability in terms of your business, and scalability in terms of onboarding your own employees to access the services, whether it is over a VPN connection or whether it is about remote desktop environments that you can have for them to work, or just critical applications. You can onboard tens of thousands of employees in response to normal business cycles or even unplanned events, right? We've got applications with the government regulation coming on international applications being banned. Some startups within India had a huge surge in requirement, and where better were they rather than India, AWS, to scale up their operations just overnight. The other part is, of course, the cost. There's no predictability of the business that we have today. Cost becomes an extremely important factor, especially when you have to conserve money so that you invest in innovation. And that's where you want to take care of. So AWS brings in so many features for startups and fintechs, right? There are so many programs where you get AWS credits, and there are so many levers that you yourself can operate on to reduce the cost of your spend. The other fun fact about AWS is that we repeatedly reduce the cost of our infrastructure year on year. So you get the latest and greatest of the infrastructure at a reduced cost from the previous generation. The other part is specific applications that you require to work from home, right? So there's something called as workspaces, something that I actively use. These are remote desktop environments that you can spin off for your own organization. For if you are the infrastructure team within the organization, all you have to do is go through a couple of clicks and a wizard to spin up remote desktops and give it to the Active Directory users or independent users in your application, in your organization. You can create these applications either in Linux, or you could go all the way and create those standard Windows platform. Again, the amount of disk space that you give, the amount of CPUs that you give are completely alterable, and you can vary them with people. Sometimes you don't have the need to give the entire workspace for your end users, right? You just need a few critical applications which need to be accessed securely. In such cases, you're okay with them using their own desktop or laptop at home, apart from a particular set of applications which are in-house. And that's where AppStream comes into play. You can give those specific applications which are installable in your environment for for access. So AppStream is a fully managed application and a streaming service for your organization to leverage. And you can easily scale your application streaming to any number of users across the globe without acquiring, provisioning, licensing, and operating hardware or infrastructure. It's a couple of clicks and you go. Of course, you've got these traditional file sharing environments as well. But if you look at workdocs, and if time permits, we'll get into a demo on workdocs to see how easy it is to collaborate in terms of document share. In fact, even onboarding your existing documents onto workdocs is extremely easy because you can do that at scale. The other part that workdocs brings to table is the API based connectivity to your documents. So you can not only do that using installed clients on your machines, browser, but also integrate it with your own code with APIs. One of the better kept secrets within Amazon, and that was something funny that was going on Twitter a few days back. That AWS has the secret is Amazon Chime. It's a collaboration tool. Bulk of my day, in fact, nowadays is spent on Chime. You know, you can do video chats, you can have audio conversations, or you can just exchange messages, which are completely secure and restricted to your corporate zones itself, so that the employees can interact with each other. Besides, you can then go ahead and invite your customers for a meeting and have a video conference with either party sharing the screen. And that makes it so much more easier when you're doing your office work, right? In today's environment. Never again before we had imagined that we would have used our video conferencing so much. And Chime's been one of the better tools that we've used in the recent times. Let's go to Amazon Connect. Um, if you've ever worked in setting up a call center environment, a place where phone calls are received or made. It's an extremely tech intense process, right? But we've got Amazon Connect, which actually lets you set up the entire call center within minutes through a wizard. So it enables businesses to have a fully operated contact center, and it can be operated out of anywhere. And we'll talk about a couple of examples on this as we go, right? We had a company called as Gain Credit based out of the UK. And Gain Credit offers credit lending to the people who would have been typically less eligible. Now, they have a contact center based out of Gurgaon, and their technology was slightly old. The ability to monitor the calls and audit them and keep a record of them was getting more and more difficult. Secondly, so which is where Amazon Connect came into being. They implemented that. The phase one has gone live. Now they have the ability to not only use that but also get the recordings which they transcribe. They can get sentiment on, etc. When it comes to that. Just give me 1 second. Okay, my display had gone off. And then let's talk about Amazon Client VPN. You need to establish a VPN connectivity between, so that there is a secure tunnel of communication between your employees' laptops or desktops at home and the intranet that you have in the office, right? And you don't want to expose certain set of data over the internet. That's where AWS's client VPN comes into play. Client VPN establishes that secure tunnel. Now, if you've ever set up VPN, you know how difficult it is to maintain a VPN server for multi-thousand customers. How do you do a fully managed pay-as-you-go VPN service? The service also needs to be essentially elastic, right? It should be able to scale in and out as per the demand at any given point in time. And that's what client VPN from AWS gives you as a service. These are the ones which we've actually seen a lot of usage increase over the period of time, right? Like we've got companies like Matchmove. It's using workspaces today to onboard new employees. If you're finding it difficult to give new laptops to your employees in remote areas, workspace is something that you'd leverage. So there are lots of companies who are doing this today. And let's focus further into what the macro trends are in these times. Once, of course, standard thing, payment. The regulatory body is pushing towards a digital payment economy, and even more so. Even today, I would rather not handle cash and exchange notes with contaminated services. Right, digital payments is going to be mainstream, and everybody today has a smartphone. In fact, there is a statistic that by 2019, 39% of population had smartphones, not just phones, in one of the largest populated countries in the world, right? And that's no mean feat. So payments is here to stay, and there are so many payments based organizations that are leveraging AWS for various reasons. What we've done about it is we've created a ready to spin up PCI ready set of infrastructure layout, and we'll talk slightly more about that. But what are the various services that are involved when you're talking about the payments industry? One is the basic compute. You've got a virtual machine, and as the demand increases during the day or in a planned or an unplanned manner, you'd want that to scale in and scale out for your business needs. And that's what EC2 brings into play. EC2 is Elastic Compute Cloud, the basic tenet of compute, a virtual machine, if you may, for spinning up your applications. You go in Linux, you go in Windows, and you've got compute ready with you. How do you add more compute cores to your application? You just have something called as auto scaling behind a load balancer. So if your demand increases, if your CPU utilization increases, or if your memory increases, you just automatically have more servers getting plugged into your load balancers. And not only do you scale out, but when the demand decreases, correspondingly, the number of services automatically get terminated. And that is absolutely great, because here you're not doing a 5-year planning of your infrastructure of what it would look like when there is a surge, and you're not keeping idle machines. You're going with the current demand, and with the current spiky nature of business, it's absolutely great to have the ability to scale up with your demand and the ability to scale in when the times are tougher. right? Or during the low times in the day when there's not as much demand. Then there is, of course, the storage layer and the whole Hadoop ecosystem on that. S3 is designed for 11 lines of durability, and it costs absolutely small. It costs 2.5 cents per GB per month, right? And you can have AES 256-bit encryption storage at rest. Plus, and that's unstructured storage. If you're talking about the warehouse level, terabyte, petabyte level storage, there's Redshift at the other end of the spectrum. And the Hadoop ecosystem called as Elastic Map Reduce, or Amazon EMR for short, for you to use. And then there are various ways you can do compute, right? You can go infrastructure as code, or you could create code as the atomic level where you don't have to manage servers. And somewhere in between of this between in the spectrum is are things like containers, your Docker based containers, your Kubernetes based ecosystem that come into play, all available with AWS. So whichever way you look at your technology, uh, the way you look at AWS is a set of building blocks. The building blocks help you assemble your business need without doing the heavy lifting for you. Let's talk about AI and ML, right? AI ML within AWS ecosystem works at multiple levels. One, we give you the hardware that you need if you've got the data scientists and can do all the the jugglery with neural networks, right? I don't understand that. They are very well qualified to do that. What they need at this point in time is GPU units. We've got a tie-up with NVIDIA and provide elastic GPU units or dedicated GPU units for their compute. And we've got machine images which have got everything that they need, right, in the menu pre-installed. So they've got uh, Torch, they've got TensorFlow, and they've got Cafe, all of that pre-installed in a machine image that comes on top of these GPU-based setups. In the middle layer, we've got something called a SageMaker, a proper studio setup for your machine learning experts in the organization. Everything from Jupyter Notebook to auto-scaling deployments of their models comes with SageMaker. And then for the developers like me, there are API endpoints. API endpoints for image recognition, text recognition, text to speech, speech to text, chat bots, then OCR. All of that is possible by invocation of APIs. And we'll talk about how other companies are leveraging all these, even within the Indian market ecosystem, right? So lots more in this space for payments industry when we're talking about AWS. The PCI DSS setup, right? All you have to do is double click on a template which spins up your entire infrastructure that you're able to see. Within the AWS account, you create a virtual private cloud for yourself. You create multiple subnets, all of them extremely secure because they've got a stateful firewall and they've got a stateless firewall as well, called as NACL, a network access control list. All of this, including the password policies, are PCI DSS compliant. Then all you go ahead and do is spin up your instances within this ecosystem. So your entire data center, without having to spend a dime, is ready with a double click. How cool is that, right? Let's take the case of RazorPay. RazorPay, of course, is a payment gateway, and it's migrated as soon as the data centers or the region was launched in India. They migrated with a downtime of 4 minutes to AWS, and that's how they've been scaling. And uh, their business has been seeing a huge spike, right? Uh, their latencies have come down, and they are going from success to success. That's with the payment industry. Now let's look at something else, right? We'll talk about two or three major factors within the fintech ecosystem. Let's look at lending, right? Bank account penetration has now reached to 85% and is growing from strength to strength. There are new tools required here for loan origination system, new ways of looking at how the business is transacted because the fintechs are disrupting. There's a huge play by AIML that is happening. Analytics are no longer running as day-end batches. They're happening in absolute real time as we go ahead and exploit what is the art of possible. Let's take the case of PayU when we are talking about this, right? PayU is an organization which is based out of 16 countries. and it's one of the top three payment gateways within India. PayU later had a merger with Citrus Pay, making the entire tech ecosystem extremely complex. Now, what they do is today they use technologies like Redshift, which is a petabyte scale vertical data warehousing solution to do their entire reconciliation on day-to-day basis. That's the value that it brings to the table. Right now, they are able to scale from the user base that they previously had to about 50 million customers as of today, and going from strength to strength. So the whole cost-effective nature, the whole dynamism that AWS brings into play is critical in the fintech industry and as a whole. Even in today's times, when this industry is seeing so much in terms of usage, it's essential that you scale up to your customers' needs and you scale up in that fashion, right? And what about capital markets? People are doing a lot more work in the capital markets again, scaling up from strength to strength. Let's talk about a use case here. If you're aware of Zerodha is the largest uh, trading stockbroker in India if you measure it by the number of active customers. Now, they were doing post-trade processing. And the post-trade processing typically takes a lot of time. In fact, a lot after the event is actually gone past, you realize that uh, there's a lot more to be done, and your batch processes typically run for a longer duration. How do you go about and address that? So Zerodha took a different take on the entire work, right? What they did is that they made the entire ecosystem serverless. They went ahead with architectures which are new age. They went serverless. Now let me explain what serverless ecosystem brings to you. You typically have a piece of code which requires a server running on it, running that. So if you're a Java developer, you would write a Java piece of code. Then you would need a Java server on that, right? You use Tomcat, WebSphere, WebLogic, something of that sort. On top of that, you will need an operating system, which is where you go to Red Hat Linux, you go into anything, Unix, Windows as a running environment. And finally, you also have to think about the hardware. You have to think about the number of CPUs you're going to utilize. What's the CPU to memory configuration? And all of that becomes your responsibility as soon as you spin it off. So though your end payload is a piece of code that adds value to your business, you're supposed to take care of the entire ecosystem. You're supposed to take care of the security, patching, the antivirus, the network throughput, make sure that the utilization is right. What if, and consider this hypothetical, you wrote a piece of code and say, hey, AWS, just run it for me. If one person calls and invokes this piece of code, run it for that person. If a million people call that same piece of code at the same time, run it for a million people. I don't want to take care of the servers, their patching, and all that. Is that something possible? So that I let my developers focus on what matters to my business and my business alone. And that's what the serverless ecosystem brings to play for your work, right? You write a piece of code in your favorite programming language, say Python, Java, Node.js, uh, Golang, and so many more, .NET Core, if you will. Write that code, upload it, and say, hey, run it for me. And you can expose that code as APIs as well using an API gateway. So many possibilities for you to use when you're using AWS as an ecosystem. Similarly, that's what Zerodha did, right? They brought down their entire batch processing from hours, of which it used to run for 6 to 10 hours, to about 2 to 3 minutes after running into serverless. And we'll also talk about the regulatory needs, right? Um, the times are changing. The regulations are extremely dynamic. They're now forward based, right? And each of them have created a regulatory uh, note for each industry, right? Things like drone, where there were the drone insurance, like working group to explore insurance standards, has been created, right? It was announced recently. EKYC. So IDA has allowed the carriers to be okay with KYC via Aadhaar eKYC facility. What does that bring to the table for you? How do you leverage that? You've got tens and thousands of documents in your ecosystem. How are they being processed? Are they being manually scanned today? If they are manually scanned, how is the data entry happening on that? How are you verifying those documents when you don't have the ability to reach out to the customers, meet them in person and make a note? Is it possible to do for you to do video KYC? And this is the art of possible, right? Is it possible for you to verify your Aadhaar documents, PAN documents without having somebody to do a check? Can the data from the scanned or photocopied documents be automatically identified and entered within the ecosystem? That's the art of possible that you would do. How would you do that using AWS? There are APIs for all of this, like OCR. There is a service called as TextTrack, which reads data from text and can do that for large documents, or you can do image recognition for smaller pieces of information, like everything from a vehicle's number plate all the way to your Aadhaar card, your PAN card, if you're storing data. Now, once you have that, you also get the coordinates of the critical pieces of information, right? And then you can use your libraries of code to mask those documents. So video KYC is a possibility. Aadhaar masking, because you want to mask only a part of the data or the entire Aadhaar number, but you want to say that my document has been verified. All these are in the possibility for you to implement, and implement them quickly, because you don't need data scientists to do image recognition algorithm for you. They are available to you as APIs. Interestingly, IRDA also announced very recently on the 26th of June a standard COVID-19 cover, if you're aware of that, right? From June 15th, for all general and health insurance, they have to provide a policy or a product which provides cover from 50,000 all the way to 5 lakh for you to avail of COVID-19 facilities and reimburse that. Typically, it takes months, if not years, to launch a product in the industry. How are you going to be nimble if you are in this space with the changing regulations? Is the question to be asked in today's world. Right. Let's take the case of Policy Bazaar and how it has responded. Right. And there's a lot of work that was done by Policy Bazaar. Right. Uh, Policy Bazaar, as you know, is an online way of getting your insurers and uh, you know everything, comparing insurance, etc., etc. So what Policy Bazaar does is that there's a lot of outreach and inbound calls over the phone. It's not just over over the browser and a computer. So voice-based broadcasting is something that they had done. Voice-based personalized calls. So instead of saying, excuse me, potential customers, a few of your documents are pending, without giving the specifics, which is a pre-recorded message, now they are able to customize the exact speech for the exact customer. So there's an automated voice-based outbound call that goes today and tells, hey customer, these specific documents from you are supposed to be uploaded to our portal here, rather than a pre-recorded message. And now how does that happen? They have a system for their voice-based broadcasting. They have introduced a text-to-speech engine called as Poly in their in their calling application. Now, what Poly does is, and Poly provides Indian English as an option, right? So you don't speak with a foreign accent. You speak in naturally understandable Indian accent when you're communicating with your customer. So much so that you can add tenor to the voice. You can have background breathing to the voice. That's how natural sounding it is. And it has seen a huge amount of success, right? 80% of the calls were made using these the Poly as a technology, and a large number, in fact 40% of the sales closures were actually achieved without having to involve sales agents in the entire ecosystem. And isn't that cool? So what can you do, and how can you leverage AWS? If that's the question that you have, there are various mechanisms. We've got programs like AWS Activate for startups, where you can engage with us. This provides you with credits and also the interaction. Drop in a mail to contact us from our side, and we'll discuss so many more other options that you have. There are free trainings available if you go into the AWS website, and I'll provide a few links later on if you look for them. For if you have time, if you're saving time during travel in these days, why not invest in learning more skills? And there are lots of them available from AWS's side today. And there's so many more people you can interact with. There are the account managers and business development representatives whom you can reach out to. Me, the solution architect, and there are a few of us in the ecosystem help you in the architecture journey of your organization. We help we act as sounding board, and we are genuinely interested in making your applications secure, resilient, highly available, performant, and cost effective, as well as operationalized, so that you don't have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the night to solve problems, especially if it involves just restarting the machine, right? You can do so much more automation with AWS in play. So you get please reach out to us and let us give you have a chance to help you out in this, right? On the compliance side, there are so many guidebooks for a regulated industry that we provide today. So this is one of them, a few links that we provide, right? There is a compliance center specifically made for India. And even if you look for these exact terms, you will get to PDFs and white papers that we've created for you to be utilized, right? How do you create PCI DSS specific applications, compliant applications? How do you take care of the regulations that are specific to India when you're talking to your customers and regulatory bodies, so that you make sure that you are well within the realms of the ecosystem? Let's go into a quick demo from here, right? And I had a few options to think about of what I could show you. But what I thought is, why not go into workspaces? Something that's not typically demonstrated when we are talking about AWS, right? So this is my AWS console. This is all those services. If you typically need the server to be launched, you typically would go to EC2, configure a server, and launch it. I hope you've got a chance. But let me walk you through a wizard without launching a standard server. This is how a server-side ecosystem plays, right? You choose the operating system. There's free tiers eligible for everything that you have, right? All the services, and you could spin up machines within that as well. So let's go. Let's spin up a Linux machine, and there you go. And there you get to choose from a lot of sizes, right from 1 vCPU and half a GB RAM, all the way to extremely large machines which can host SAP based applications. So the choices are unparalleled with any other cloud provider, right? You let's go in for 1 vCPU and 1 GB RAM with block storage. Then you choose, and this is where security comes into play. You choose your virtual private cloud. You choose a subnet where you want to launch a machine into, and you also give IP addresses, or you get them auto assigned. Then you add disks to your instance, and this is the root volume that you can see, and then you can increase the size to whatever number of GBs, right? And these get pre-mounted. Then you can label your instance saying name demo. Then give which ports are going to be accessible. By default, you can have only port 22 accessible. You can have pre-created access groups and security groups, which are stateful firewalls for you. And then finally, go ahead and launch the entire instance, and it should um, be up and running within a few minutes. I'm not going to go ahead and show you how it launched, or how do you do SSH, or how do you use PuTTY on that. That's standard practice. That's how easy it is to spin up servers. But what about sharing documents? Let's go to workspaces, right? all that you do when you're creating workspaces. As an administrator, there'll be two personas here. As an administrator, you go ahead and launch a workspace and create workspaces, and that's what I use for remote access for my applications and my office stuff as well. So here I add the number of users. Let me show you all the users. Let's take me, add selected. For this, I've gone to workspaces. I've chosen a directory, a collection of users, and a set of machines. Within that, I have given Gaurav as the user who can access a particular workspace. Here is where you see a lot of options in terms of what type of a machine do you want to give that particular individual, right? A power user can have an 8 vCPU and a 32 GB RAM machine, but if your objective is to access only a few applications and browser, you might as well give a machine which is just Windows 10, and it is available where you can avail the free tier as well. Next step, uh, everything needs to be encrypted here. Okay, and name your demo workspace. Next step, okay, looks all good, and I can launch a workspace. Now, when I launch a workspace, how do I access it? This will take some time. Um, Okay, I've already got a workspace for myself. This will take time. And for you to access these workspaces, there's a workspaces client available for all your operating systems, Linux, Windows, as well as Chromebooks. Even if you're using a browser, you can access your remote environment uh, using your browser itself. And that's how easy it is for your organization to give your newly joined employees or your existing employees access to your corporate data center or your intranet network. um, how about document sharing? Let's go there for a moment. You have a service called as work docs, where you generally go ahead and create a work docs space for yourself. So I've created a work docs site called as demo in this, and you can just click here, just like the previous things. It'll drive you through a wizard, and in fact, there are options where you can hook it up to your existing Active Directory when you're talking about it. However, once you go there, you share this link to your employees who are available to access this. This link's available on the internet, and I've already logged in. But they go ahead and log in to the entire work docs site, which is for your organization and your organization alone, right? Hopefully my password is correct. I have no recollection of the password. And there you go. If you want to upload documents, just upload a file or a folder, and there you will have options to upload things. If you want to collaborate, that's a great option here as well. You can leave comments on the side saying this is how the document is, and you can of course download those documents, request approvals from other people, and share them over and over again with your colleagues, and keep them still within the ecosystem, right? Essentially, what I'd uploaded for this is a document on the trainings that are available on AWS. Please do have a look at this. This PDF is available over the internet as well. Just look up for AWS free trainings, and it will help you get started. In fact, the aws.amazon.com has a great place called as Getting Started for you to get off the blocks very quickly. Cloud is going to be the future from now onwards, and it always helps to have that skill up your armor to proceed and make your career a much more successful one. With that, thanks for your time. And before we close, let's have a quick session on question and answers, if there are any specific ones. Uh, Over to you, Shivani. Any questions that we have? Let's.
Yes, so Gaurav, we have few questions, technical questions.
Mhm.
So if you are comfortable, we can take it up.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, cool. So first question that we have is how can AWS help me with plug and play application development without
Mhm.
coding? Please elaborate on the tools available.
Oh, absolutely. That's a fantastic question, right? Um, Low code applications are going to be available, and AWS has launched a service. Let me actually give me 1 second, and okay, just give me 1 second. So very recently, and which is why I don't remember the name of the application. It's Honeycode. Is a platform for low code. Have a look at this Honeycode, where you can actually start creating your application. There's a fantastic getting started guide on Honeycode, AWS for getting started, where you can create the front end and back end applications without writing any code. In fact, to keep yourself up to date, do follow the blog by Jeff Barr, and he keeps coming up with what's new on AWS. So have a look at this. The blog itself tells you how to start creating mobile applications for yourself with just drag and drop. But that's not it, right? Low code is one end of the spectrum. How about creating applications rapidly? How do I integrate my existing Angular based or React based application with the backend that is provided by AWS? And how do I do that securely? How do I invoke the APIs from that? There's a service called as AWS Amplify, which you can use to get those integrations done. Again, phenomenally well documented and tells you how to get started. In fact, if you're a front end developer who wants to use the server side ecosystem for persistence or browser side storage, or even create GraphQL based interactions, try and use AWS Amplify. So to go towards lower pieces of code, use go ahead and use Honeycode, Amazon Honeycode, which is launched on the 24th of June, very recently. Use AWS Amplify, and Amplify also has got a command line interface for you to create applications absolutely rapidly. Also, if you're starting on your entire journey of programming and you're still at the beginner spectrum, all the IDs like VS Code have plugins from AWS where you can start writing code and right click and deploy them directly onto the cloud. So without even visiting the console, once you've set it up correctly, you can go onto AWS. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, so we do have another question. How can AWS help me with implementing digital ledger technology if we want to develop a solution for banking via blockchain?
Okay, so Amazon Quantum Ledger is something that I wanted to say. And the reason why I am going on the internet to show you is to show you how easily this information is available at your fingertips, right? So Amazon's got something called as QLDB. So if you're anywhere in implementing these ledger-based or blockchain-based technologies, there is available service right out of the box for you uh, without having to set up an entirely massive infrastructure for that. And AWS Quantum Ledger supports Hyperledger Fabric and Ethereum for Ledger. So that makes it much easier for you to get started off the blocks on blockchain technologies. This was introduced somewhere late last year and has gone GA recently as well. Shivani, if you could get me the name of the person who's asking the question, I can speak to them directly as well, right?
Okay, so we'll ask them to drop their name as well,
Yes,
so I can share the names and the contact details with you offline, if that's okay with you.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much, Gaurav, for this amazing session, for this enriching session.
It was a pleasure.
I'd also like to thank AWS for partnering with us for this amazing workshop.
Mhm.
Now we'll just take a small break for 10 minutes and we'll be back for the next workshop. I'd request everyone to visit our exhibition booths, check out their offering to and to rake up points which can help you win exciting prizes. You can also check your standing on the leaderboard on the platform. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. And thank you once again, Gaurav. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivani. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure talking to you, all of you. Stay safe, stay well, take care of yourselves. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.